Hello and welcome back to Know How Things Work. I'm your host, Siren, and today we're going to talk about my number one tool for managing fear and symptoms of Lyme disease. Now we're going to go, this is, if you're familiar with tapping or EFT, or if you've maybe heard it, I hope this isn't too much of a disservice. We're going to do a highly truncated version of this, the way I first learned it and how it interrupted my anxiety attacks. There's an enormous amount more to this that can be explored, something you can look into on your own. You're going to find video after video, but I couldn't find anything really brief and to the point that could just, when you need it, be there for you. Something I could give people to introduce them. So that's what hopefully this is. So let me tell you my story first of all, which is that in February of this year, I did a neural stimulation process and it backfired, and it basically started triggering anxiety attacks, the kind that many of you with Lyme are very familiar with, or even those of you that don't have it are familiar with. This technique, I'd heard about this and it sounded like silly voodoo. You know, the people that had told me about it didn't quite come off as credible. This kind of seemed pretty far out there. But when I started having anxiety attacks, in fact, I was with my wife. We were in a movie theater. We were seeing like the Marvel movie back in February. And all of a sudden, I'm enjoying the movie, and all of a sudden, full panic attack, heart going crazy, sort of losing consciousness, all this kind of stuff. Had to leave the theater, sit down outside and kind of recover. So that was pretty much, with all the other symptoms that were piling on, that felt like, okay, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, this is unlivable. If I have to live with panic attacks, anxiety attacks, forget about it. So I had heard about EFT, like I said. I didn't really think much about it, and I hadn't looked into it on my own. That's what I did the next morning. So I went and watched a movie called The Tapping Solution. I highly recommend this. The Tapping Solution shows Vietnam vets and people that have had fibromyalgia, people that have been lost their spouse in traumatic car accidents, getting over almost instantaneously, like within a day or two, and then revisiting six months later, getting over their traumas very quickly. So there's a lot more to this, but I want to show you what I learned really quickly and actually do it with you here on camera on the podcast here, so you can do this at home and have this tool, explore it further if you want. But anyway, so my story is the next morning I woke up, I watched The Tapping Solution. This is so easy. Like, the basics of this are so easy. And again, I hope to the creators of this, I'm not doing a disservice by missing all the key differences and details, but you can always look those up later. So essentially what it comes down to is this silly looking thing. Now, it looks like a Saturday Night Live sketch, and if you say the affirmation,
I'm going to do a terrific show today because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
But I implore you, give it a try. It will be the last anxiety attack that you ever have. The anxiety attack would kind of well up, and the next day I had learned this. So we're going to go through this right now. There's 9 points on your body, and I'll explain them as we go through this. Just try this. Like, suspend your disbelief for a second if you're not familiar with this. If you are familiar with this, then maybe this will give you a little piece more on how you can use it in the rest of your life. I now use it, my wife and I use it for everything. Bad day, driving, I'll explain what all this is, but cut off and driving, whatever. Sad about saying goodbye for weeks at a time, whatever the thing is, as severe as it is, anxiety in the hyperbaric chamber, whatever it is, it will interrupt it and give my brain back. It's like it de-adrenalizes the emotional content. So here's what it is. So here's what we do. So the anxiety attack the second day was starting to well up, and I had just learned, okay, what are the 9 points? So this is what we do. Essentially, like I said, there are other ways of doing this. What I did, I just did a very simple version of it, and it was the last anxiety attack that ever took hold was the day before I learned this. And never again since, and now they're completely gone and dismantled. Like, whatever the mechanism was is just dismantled. It took about a few weeks of it, but a panic attack or an anxiety attack never fully took hold again. So first point is we start with what's called the karate chop point of the hand. It doesn't matter which side you do it on. Hey, you're at home. This looks silly. We're about to look like a monkey. Maybe it's going to look like an indoctrination into a cult, but I want you to do this at home. If you're alone, and you're not too whatever, give this a try right now, especially if you're having some kind of pain, some kind of anxiety. Just start tapping this karate chop point of your hand. So this is kind of the key point. As I go through the 9 points, this is the key point right here. And the thing is, the more that I noticed when I was in the anxiety attack, the more effectiveness this have, the more that you can conjure the emotional experience of the trauma or whatever you're going through, the more impact this seems to have. So we start with the karate chop point of the hand. And I would look, for instance, at, you can look for whatever your thing is. But if you want to go the extra mile, you can say the affirmation. Now, I've been doing this without the affirmation, and it's very powerful. In my case, it was the anxiety, so I would say, even though my brain is betraying me, and you can fill in the blank. So even though blank, whatever your thing is, even though my brain is betraying me, I deeply love and accept myself. Even though my brain is betraying me, now we go to point number 2, the crown chakra. Even though my brain is betraying me, even though my brain is betraying me, and we don't have to do the whole thing. We go to the eyebrow. We start with the beginning of the eyebrow point. That's point number 3. Then we go to the outside of the eye right here. Even though my brain is betraying me, we go under the eye. And again, see if you're doing this right now. Are your symptoms starting to go down? Even though my brain is betraying me. And then under the nose. Even though my brain is betraying me. Under the lip, in the crease here, between the chin and the bottom of the lip. And then this one we can just thump. It's where your clavicle and your breastbone kind of meet, but we're sort of thumping. If you don't feel like a gorilla, you're not doing it right. If you don't feel silly, you're not doing it right. And then the last point is the bra line. About 3 inches down from your pit, right on the side there. Even though my brain is betraying me. And by this point, I would for me, it took about halfway through that sequence, or even, I don't remember, at some point through it, that the anxiety attack that was welling up would literally subside. With Lyme disease, the number one thing that I've had to learn is fear management. That's like the number one thing about Lyme disease. What are the, how am I getting it treated? How's my life going to come back together? Whatever the thing, all the stuff. This isn't working. I'm, the depression, whatever. So again, you can repeat this, just keep repeating it. The idea that they would do, the creator Gary Craig would say you would keep going through this and reaffirming, and then keep a count. See, like on a 1 to 10 scale, wherever you started, has it diminished? Has it diminished? Now, I find that even just doing this silently, without the affirmation, without the Saturday Night Live sketch affirmation, it seems to make a difference. We had another friend that was getting a divorce, and there are, by the way, subtle ways to do this too. So her day was being interrupted at work, and I said, hey, look, give this a try. And, maybe you don't want to go through the whole monkey ritual, all this stuff, but this is subtle. Like, you can do this under the conference room table at work. You can do this and nobody knows. You're just messing with your hand. This sucker alone is like 90% of it, just this little karate chop point here. I've had entire feelings of discomfort and anxiety in the hyperbaric chamber, whatever, kind of disappear instantly. Fear. And the premise behind this is beautiful. It is that there is no innate or, you could say inherent human fears. That the thought is that none of the fears we have are inherent, other than falling and loud noises, right? That's programmed in everybody. Everything else is learned behavior, stuff you learn from your parents, stuff that happened that, like I rolled in the ocean too young or saw shark movies too young, and now I don't want to, like large bodies of water terrify me. Like, this is the way to undo it. These are obviously ancient acupuncture meridian points. And whatever this does to interrupt the brain and to interrupt that downward cycle, it's pretty impressive. So for me, it literally interrupted panic attacks. I had a friend that I talked to. He started telling me about how his 19-year-old sister just died. And I just looked him in the eye. I was like, hey, I know this is silly. Let's just do this together right now. We went through it. By the time we were somewhere around here, like his demeanor had changed. Like he was back in his body. It's not like he forgot about his sister. It's not something like that, but it was like the morbidity and the sadness had released him and given him his brain back. I have a friend that's going through chronic depression. He's been over-medicated and caused brain damage. I asked him if he knew about this, and it was more of a reminder. He had heard about it from his chironeurologist, and he's like, oh my God, thanks for reminding me. He said my depression was like at a 9 or a 10 today, and I just did tapping because you brought it up again, and it's dropped down to like a 4. So this is one of those things where you just got to do it. It looks weird. You just got to do it to see if it makes a difference.
All you got to do is just tap it in. Just tap it in.
Just tap it in. Just tap it in. Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo.
And a lot of times, like I said, just doing this piece alone, even, when I'm in mixed company, I don't want to look like an ape. Even this piece alone really works. And again, if you say the affirmation, there seems to be more power in that. And when I was having anxiety attacks, make no mistake, I was very into trying the whole thing the right way. And it literally was the last time that anxiety had ever taken hold. So hopefully this is a tool you can use forever and ever. I think personally it's the first thing every child should learn. It's potentially the end of trauma, like the end of the emotional hold that trauma has on you. There is so much more to look into about it. You can look up Gary Craig at emofree.com. There are many other things that people have reported it making a difference for, whether that's negative limiting beliefs, heartbreak and loss, stress, phobias, intense different kinds of healing, cravings and addictions, anaphylaxis. I know friends that use it to interrupt allergy attacks, PTSD and other traumas, even eyesight, the restoration of eyesight. It's pretty impressive when you start looking down the list. But again, don't believe me, go do the research, try it out for yourself, see if it makes a difference. And again, if you're feeling like you just joined a cult when you say this stuff, then you are doing it right, my friend. Anyway, that's it for Know How Things Work. Just to wrap up the show, I wanted to let you know there's a lot of new people coming to the podcast. It's grown quite quickly, and a lot of them are coming with Lyme, so maybe they're not as tech savvy. They've kind of been forced online to look for solutions. So for those of you that don't quite understand, I've got a lot of people saying, where are the rest of your videos? So up in the corner, I put a subscribe button. You should see it on YouTube somewhere if it's not in the corner. You can get to my channel by either going to youtube.com/knowhowthingswork. Again, subscribing will keep you notified. Checking that button with the bell on it will give you updates and things like that. Or you can even go to knowhowthingswork.com and see all of the episodes listed there. This is listener supported. If you like this show, you can always donate. Even a small amount, like $1 a month, helps. There are links below in the description on YouTube. Also, the music that you've heard in the background, that is all original music, so that's another great way of supporting. You can go to iTunes if you like any of that music. And I'm going to leave you with this. I just released a new music video. It's a whole separate channel. I keep them separate. This is my informational podcast. Just put out a new video that I think is a very, very uplifting one. I know that since a lot of Lyme people are watching this, uplifting is short supply. Otherwise, please enjoy the rest of the videos on here, comments below. I hope this is a tool you can add to your arsenal. I hope you're well, and until next time, we'll see you soon. Thank you.